So I'm a lot like you. I got into the fitness industry because I love being in good shape. I wanted to learn more about it. I love the idea of being able to help people get into better shape, achieve the goals they wanted. I really was attracted to the whole, the team atmosphere thing, the being able to, work with athletes one-on-one and really, learn about high performance training, and even beyond that, work with the general public, help inspire people and help people get to where they want to be, not just, from a general fitness point of view, but really get them into the athletic world and get them living a more active lifestyle. And that whole world really was something I was always attracted to from high school. I decided early on that I didn't want to just be the average trainer. I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, and I wanted to be a guru. And I can tell you from years of experience, it can take a long time to get there. But one of the things that I realized is that it took me a long time to get there solely because I didn't have the right systems in place. People are going to come in for all kinds of different reasons, and you need to have the systems in place to make sure that you can quickly and efficiently get people on the right track and get them on the right track early. What I want to do is I want to share with you all the systems that I use, that I've developed over years and years of practice to really get yourself to that guru status, to have, people waiting to work with you, to people asking for you by name, peers looking up to you for the knowledge and the systems that you use, and really, in essence, why we got into this in the first place, really be able to help people, really be able to inspire people. And I'm going to help you in this free video series shave off 10 to 15 years of development and work that it takes to get to that guru status. My name's Greg Lothian. I'm an athletic therapist and strength and conditioning coach. I have been since 1998. That means that I work everything from taking people from injured, could be bad injuries, back injuries, that sort of stuff, all the way to high performance training and everything in between. So I've spent many years developing all kinds of different systems that I use with a wide variety of clientele, and I use them successfully. I run a great business. I have all the clients that I need. I make great money doing it. It's really been rewarding for me, but it's taken a lot of work. And I really want to save you a ton of work and show you the systems that I use to really make sure that everybody that comes in, or almost everybody that comes in, that not only can you help them, but you really want to work with them. They're the people that you want to work with. Because one of the realities is you get into this business and there's a perception that, we're going to work with athletes, we're going to work with people that are motivated to get fit. And reality is you're going to have all kinds of different clients come in. You're going to have some clients come in, especially when you're early on in your career, that really lack motivation, but have the money to work with you. Not the greatest clients to work with. I don't work with clients like that anymore. And I can tell you that you don't need to either. You really want to ramp up their motivation and get them into being and living that active lifestyle, that athletic lifestyle. So you can actually transform some of those clients into people that you really love working with. Part of the other reality is you get clients who are really motivated and want to work with you. They just don't have the funds to be able to work with you on a regular basis. I can help you solve that problem. You have the right systems in place. You work with them more occasionally, but really making sure that they have everything they need to train hard, because it's incredibly rewarding to work with these people. Like I said before, over many years, I've built a very rewarding business. It's been a lot of work, but it's fun. I love it. It's fulfilling. And I'm even to the point now where, I get referrals from professionals in the field, whether it's in the therapy field or the fitness field, people that I've never even met before, purely by reputation. That's because people know that the service that I offer is very complete. I don't take any shortcuts, and I get results. Also, and this is something that's really important, is having the right associations with the right people. I don't have the answers to everything, but I have people in place to make sure that when I don't have the answer, I can go to somebody else who will work closely with me and allow me to really service the client the best way possible and get the best results. And everybody's happy in the end. And they attribute it to the hard work that I put in to make sure that they're getting the results that they need. I'm not focused on money. I'm focused on results. And I want you to be that way too. And I'm going to show you how to get there and get there way faster than developing all these systems yourself. A lot of the courses you take, at least even initially, but later on, they teach you bits and pieces of many different things, whether it's, teaching you about biomechanics or teaching you about sprint training or any other, there are tons of different stuff, nutrition and, breathing patterns and whatever it is. They teach you their little piece of the pie on, that little slice of clientele that they work with. What I want to show you is how to unlock the true path to being able to help people. The reality is when you take these courses, you're limited to a small range of clientele to work with that fits within the windows of whatever course it is you took. I'm going to show you how to really broaden that range of clientele and make sure that those clients that you work with are enjoyable to work with. You're going to get results for them, and they are going to rave about you, and so that you can have a business that's reliable, that makes you enough money to do the things that you love to do and build a good career. So whether you did take a weekend course or you took 4 years of university to get yourself into this field, you're working with a range of clientele right now, and the first thing I want to go through is just sort of explain what that range is, or what the full range is, and how to really broaden the spectrum of the people that you're working with. Later on in this video, I'm going to show you how I analyze biomechanics quickly, how I break it down to very easily correct and increase performance, and get into things like, decreasing pain and truly understanding what biomechanics you're trying to create with different types of people. Because the reality is, you take a course that talks to you about anything, lifting, pushing, pulling, all the very baseline stuff. Everybody that walks in has got different problems. You need to know how to quickly solve them, not waste a whole bunch of time trying to fit all kinds of different people into one box. So first we need to understand what the range of people is and where we want to tap into, where we can have the most reward from the clients that we work with, and where we can really affect people and have some fun and really turn people's lives around. So the first thing that I want to go through is okay, what is the range of people that are out there, excuse me. If we look at it on a timeline, let's start with injured. So, right at the bottom of the timeline might be somebody who's, flat on their back, can't even move, in lots of pain. Other end of the spectrum, high performance training, high performance athletes, really pushing the envelope. If you're in the fitness world, then right now, this is the end of the spectrum that you're working with. The other end of the spectrum is, you know, that the therapy end of the spectrum, you know, whether it's chiro or physiotherapy or exercise therapy, any one of those. But this is really the therapy end of things. Okay? There is, and has been for years, a massive disconnect between the therapy world and the fitness world. And if you've been in this industry for any length of time, you know that one world has a very high tendency of bashing the other and vice versa. And there's not a lot of cohesion because there's very different understandings of very different things that are going on here. But I can tell you, because as an athletic therapist and strength coach, I work with the whole spectrum. To me, there isn't really a disconnect. And you have to understand that early, that this is just a timeline. The reality about the therapy world is people will get anywhere between, it could be as low as 75% better to 90% better, and they stop going to therapy. It's really just like, you know, maybe you're in a little bit of pain. It doesn't necessarily justify paying to go to see a therapist and making those appointments, when really your goal is to, you know, now get back into shape and do stuff like that. But that being said, you're floating between the therapy world and the fitness world. This is what I call the dead zone. Here's something that you need to know. You want to work with these people. The reality is, the dead zone comprises a massive amount of people. The size, this is sort of representative of it, but actually the size of the dead zone versus the fitness zone and the therapy zone, the dead zone is way bigger than all of those. And in this dead zone, there are lots of people that are highly motivated to get fit. They want to change their lives. They are sick of being in pain. They're not in so much pain that they need hands-on, one-on-one therapy, but they need somebody who understands biomechanics. They need somebody who can sort of rebuild their bodies properly and help them to last longer. These people are willing to work with you more often. They are willing to do their things at home. And they are, like I said, highly motivated to get out of this. They don't even know they're in the dead zone. But to get out of the dead zone, into fitness, into living an active lifestyle, because, you know, to some degree, every time maybe they exercise, they feel limited when they go to the gym, and they have pain, something like that. Why you need to understand how to work with these people is because, you know, even if somebody signs the waiver form saying that they're all good to go, if they're from the dead zone, what is inevitably going to happen with these people? They're going to move into the fitness zone. They're going to work with you. They're going to work with some system. A lot of the systems out there right now, really highly intense systems. And what's going to happen? It happens all the time. Every day. This is one of my biggest fights against the systems that are out there right now, is they are injuring people in droves because they're taking them out of the dead zone and pulling them into the fitness zone. Or there's actually one more little thing that they're doing. If you're taking people, so we have to sort of qualify who's in the dead zone. There's actually more people than the people that are walking around with pain. The people that have poor biomechanics, that are at risk for injury, they are in the dead zone. They're not in the fitness zone. They don't even know it, because as soon as you start to apply forces to these people, their bodies start to break down. And some of these injuries are life-changing injuries. Back injuries that they never had before. 100% preventable. Didn't need to happen at all. But unrecognized, you pull them into the fitness zone, test their bodies out. They want goals. They want to work hard. and then they get injured all the way back to the bottom again, and you lose them as a client. And not only that, but this is affecting your reputation. You don't want that to happen, okay? So, now that we understand that, if, whatever the range of clients that you're working with now, somewhere in the fitness zone, the best place to increase the range of clients that you work with is into the dead zone as much as possible. There are, like I said, a whole rash of clients there that you could work with. So, what I'm going to talk you through in the next few minutes, we don't have a lot of time, but I want to show you the biomechanical systems that I use to make sure that I'm recognizing people that are in the dead zone, recognizing people that have, maybe don't have any pain, but have really poor biomechanics and are at risk for injury, so they're really sort of dead zone people anyway. And I'm going to walk you through the system that I use to make sure that we work with them really well, draw them out of the dead zone to the best of our ability, and really get them as far to their goals or right to their goals without putting them at risk for injury and ending up back in the therapy end of things, okay? So I'm just going to erase the board and reset it up, and we'll get going on that right away. Okay, so a lot of the systems that are out there right now, they teach you all kinds of different things, how to analyze biomechanics and what exercises you should be doing. And a lot of the focus is on those functional biomechanics. Functional biomechanics being, the assessment programs through them and all of that. And it's really touted as as step number one, what you should be doing with your clients when they come in. I've been doing this for a lot of years. I've come across a lot of problems with all types of different problems with all types of different clients. And I can tell you definitively that testing functional biomechanics as step one is not what you should be doing. Definitely 100% we will get to testing biomechanics and making sure, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. But as a step one, I am going to save you a ton of time going through the system that I go through. So the system I go through, any of my clients that have worked with me for, even a week will know this. I have what I call fundamentals. The fundamentals are really exactly as they sound, a bunch of things that I have to check before we start doing anything else. Because what's happened to me in the past, before I started using this system, was you come across some sort of obstacle, whether it's, through their squatting biomechanics or something else. They're doing an exercise and all of a sudden, they're getting shoulder pain. When I went back to figure out what the actual problem was, first of all, it took me a little bit of extra time, and we're having to regress, which in the client's frame of mind is never good. Regression is never good. And it turned out it was just stuff that I was finding consistently, and I just needed to check on it first. If I had corrected it early on, it would have been barely noticed by the client and would have eliminated the obstacle completely. So the first thing that I do with my clients, the first thing that I'm teaching them when it comes to starting to do any kind of skills training or resistance training, anything like that. Before we get to that, I teach them what I call the big three. The big three are universally three things that you're going to have to pay attention to during almost any exercise. So the first one of the big three, center of gravity. So a lot of exercises we do with our feet planted on the ground. You need to be talking to your clients about what they should be feeling in their feet, and not just as a really quick sort of conversation, as something, as a thing that you're going to mention many times later on to help them correct their biomechanics. If this is the only thing you teach them, then when it gets to doing like squatting, lifting, standing up, pushing, those types of things, if they are well aware of what position that they're standing in, like what it should be feeling like in their feet, if they're outside of that and you notice it, some of the things that I do small group training, and this type of stuff allows me to just simply say to the person, okay, watch your center of gravity. And in correcting just their center of gravity will correct many biomechanical flaws. So if you taught them nothing else, but you taught them this, then you're going to go a long way to being able to correct a lot of things later on. Or keep their, technique perfect, or hone in on a technique, correct something easily. The second part of the big three is what I call, sort of what the industry calls neutral spine. I teach it a little different than most people teach it, because to be honest, probably 85 to 90% of the professionals out there teaching neutral spine are teaching it wrong. So I really want to make sure that they understand it completely and they know what it feels like. One of the major issues I have with the neutral spine position, not just that I have, but clients have with it, is that when you're in the ideal position, there's virtually no sensation. So there's no compression in your back, there's no stretching, there's nothing like that. How do you maintain that? The only way you can maintain it is knowing exactly where it is, practicing it a whole bunch of times, and understanding how to adjust it through a movement. So talking to them about that, and it's part of the preliminary exercises. When you're giving pelvic tilts, don't just give pelvic tilts for no reason. Give them their pelvic tilts to help them understand what the position of their lower back is and where it should be at any given time. The third thing is bracing. How do you brace properly? How do you brace against resistance? So how do you keep your neutral spine position perfect against various types of resistance, various types of movements? Understanding what bracing is and how much they should be bracing during any given exercise or amount of resistance or movement. I tell my clients early on, it really depends on what you're doing. If you're just leaning forward to pick up a pencil, you don't need to brace that much. But if you're going to try and, deadlift your own body weight, maybe you should be, having a significant brace involved at that point. So talking to them about these three things and then labeling it, the big three, has been a huge help for me because, again, when I'm in that environment and I'm coaching many people at the same time or a few people at the same time, and I see a biomechanical problem going on, and it's somebody that I've worked with before, I can just simply say, okay, watch your big three, see them in their heads going through the steps, and watch the corrections happen. If they get through the big three and the corrections aren't happening, then I know I have to go over there and cue them into a little bit more stuff. But by and large, because they understand it well, because we went through it at the beginning, I say to them, hey, watch your big three. And they activate a lot of corrections. And that people that have been working with me for a while, they even cue other people into it now, where they're, like, hey, watch your big three, or watch your neutral spine, or bracing, or whatever it is. So a huge help for me to have that system in place. It also, in the process of teaching them this, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. How if somebody can find neutral spine, if they can't find neutral spine, and I've had clients like this, especially highly trained athletes with strong abs, sometimes have a very hard time getting and staying in that neutral spine position. I had somebody just the other day that I was working with that had done so much overhead work, Olympic lifting, all that, had a very hard time not having their lower back completely compressed, because that was the way they were trained to do it. So, and I'm going to talk about neural pathways in a second, but these are the kind of things we need to break before we go on to fully integrated exercises. You're not going to be able to correct these little things in fully integrated exercises. And again, I'll talk about why that is in a little bit. Second thing I check, and this is the neural pathways thing, early on, some of the things I check, dissociations. there's a couple of really key dissociations I need to know that people can do. One is, can you round your lower back? The LX stands for low spine, and then T-spine. So can you round your lower back at the same time as you arch your upper back? And the reverse. Can you do the reverse? This is, for many, many people, a really sort of bizarre, like, well, I can't even dissociate those two movements, where your pelvis, if they're lying down, the pelvis and thoracic spine, they should be able to tilt this way and tilt that way. It pays huge dividends later on if they can understand that. So I check that to see if I have to work with it. If they can do it immediately, great, I move on. If not, I give them a bunch of stuff. And correcting neural pathways, if you really have to use the 500, 5,000 rule, and this is sort of a sidebar, something that you should be keeping in mind all the time. So there's the 500, 5,000 rule. Okay? If it's a new movement that somebody's never, ever, ever done before, there's a pretty good chance that 500 repetitions or under will create the neural pathway, and they'll be able to repeat the movement, and it'll become a reflex. If you have to take a movement that they've done, thousands of times already, it's a well-established neural pathway, and you have to just change it a little bit because they're not doing it properly, you're talking about a 5,000 rule. So this is when you're giving clients like, okay, I want you to do this little exercise. It's not really a gym exercise. You can do it at home, but let's build a plan. I want you to do, 100 repetitions every single day, and then, map it out to get to 5,000, which is, 700 a week, and hopefully they can bolster that up, try and do a few extras, see if you can get 1,000 in a week, and in 5 weeks, that should be well established. And if they say to you like, well, 5 weeks, that's pretty crazy. What I've done with some really ingrained pathways before is I've calculated it out, say, okay, so you want to get this done in 2 weeks, we need to do, 2,500. This is how many repetitions we need to do. And in that case was actually, I went to 10,000 because it was a cyclist, and because he could do a lot of repetitions in a very short period of time. That 10,000 repetitions was very good at reprogramming him. We slowed him right down and corrected his mechanical problem, and he never had problems with it again. So, dissociation of abs. There's some people that are going to say, and there are prominent people out there that say, you cannot separate the, TVA from obliques, from upper, lower abs. They're all just driven by the same neural system. That is 100% proven. I've proven it thousands of times over. That's 100% not true. You can separate them all out, and in particular, when it comes to this dissociation, the lower back and upper back doing opposite things, it's separating lower abs and upper abs, and this is hugely important. They need to be able to do these things. The other thing they need to be able to separate out, TVA and obliques and upper abs, and sometimes this can be a bit of a process to do. So I check early on just to see, because when you come into postural problems later, when they're really bracing and you find they're always curled forward, they have a hard time getting their chest out, it's because that dissociation isn't well established. Again, I had somebody the other day that a highly trained athlete, very, very difficult to separate those two pathways, and it's going to take him weeks to do it. So I want to check it early so that we can get on top of it, especially when motivation is high with the clients and that sort of stuff. The next thing I check, range of motion, in particular, hip range of motion. If you're going to teach people how to squat, lift, push, pull, standing, all of those things, you need to understand what their hip range of motion is. Big arguments out there right now. Oh, should you do full depth squats or partial depth squats? The answer is yes, but it 100% depends on the person's hip range. Some people can go into a full depth squat without losing their neutral spine position. This is the key indicator as to whether they should be doing full depth squats or not. If they're coming out of neutral spine, if they're flexing their lower spine to get down into that position, especially if they're working with resistance, some sort of weight, you are putting them at risk. You are putting them in the dead zone by doing that, and you're putting them far into the dead zone. If something catastrophic goes wrong, it is your fault for not picking it up, not checking it, and they are going to go down to the, not just down to the therapy end of things, but like near the bottom of the therapy end, successfully taking them out of the fitness realm into the therapy world, and a long process to get back there. So, check hip range so that you understand, okay, what sort of depth can this person tolerate? Are they better at wide squats? Can they get away with narrow squats? That type of thing. The other thing I check, shoulder range. Shoulder range is going to dictate a whole bunch of things. It's going to dictate low back strength for like how tight lats are, how much movement you can get away with, that sort of thing. So checking, rotator cuff and just overall range, reaching up, reaching to the sides, reaching back. I've had clients come to me like, yeah, I'm having tendonitis problems, and they can reach up overhead and do movements like that. Seems like everything's okay. Okay, so let's do some basic range of motion testing. And I get them, okay, to just put your elbows by your side, bring your hands out, let's just see how much range you have. And I've had multiple clients do this, and just, that was it. Full range right there. Or this. One was almost normal, but still really tight, and the other one was like non-existent. Then I find out, because clients do this to you all the time, well, did you injure your shoulder? Oh, yeah, it's true. I did injure my shoulder way back when. Never went for therapy, whatever. Okay, so there's some issues there that need to be addressed. So check it early, because you'll just run into problems later. The last thing that I really want you to check, and this is really outside the box, but hugely important. It's very recognized in the nutrition world for performance and all that, but from a biomechanics standpoint, you need to be checking hydration levels. Decreased fluid in the body will change posture and biomechanics. Guaranteed. So I've noticed it for many, many years in myself. I came out of the martial arts world, and hydration levels would definitely affect my, not just performance. I mean, they talk about hydration affecting performance. It actually changes positioning. Changing positioning will affect performance from a totally different standpoint, putting muscles at mechanical disadvantages, that sort of thing. It's a very simple thing for you to check. It's a healthy thing for them to do right away. You got to get on it and be checking this before you're checking this functional biomechanics. Okay, so those are the fundamentals that I go through. And now what I'm going to talk about is the biomechanics. And, a lot of the terms out there right now is functional biomechanics. What I prefer to term it is efficient biomechanics. Okay, so you're going to see in the next segment, we'll get to it right away. We're going to talk about biomechanics and how to check them. Efficient biomechanics. It's you're gonna hear all kinds of functional biomechanics. There's all kinds of terms out there. Every client that walks into your studio or the gym or wherever it is that you're working is typically looking for something different. And we'll talk about in the next couple of videos how to figure out which biomechanics are more important for them. But figuring out how you can take their body and make their biomechanics as efficient as possible. I'm going to use squatting as an example because it's really easy. But here's what I do. Here's the basis of what I do. Let's say we start with a squat. I purely ask people, okay, I want you to squat down. Keep your heels on the ground, but sit as far down to the ground as you can. gives me an indication of what's going on, what their foot placement is, and all kinds of stuff. If you've taken courses on biomechanics before, there's a ton of stuff to look for, whether their knees are coming in. I don't have time to go through all of that sort of stuff, but you understand what I'm talking about if you've been in it for a while. So, what I do is I have a look at it, and I use what I call the rule of 3. If I look at their squat, and there are more than 3 things to correct, then I'm not going to be able to correct it in a squat, not efficiently. So, what I do is I regress to what I call building blocks. So I have a sheet of building blocks that make up a squat, which incidentally I'll share with you at the end of this series. And I go back to the building blocks, check the individual building blocks to find out where the problems are. What I'm looking for is some sort of movement, whether it's a more rudimentary movement, that has 3 or less issues. Okay? It's a hip hike and, their legs coming forward or whatever it is they're doing. Their hip stabilizers are working, but, maybe there's 1 or 2 problems to fix there. That's where you start correcting biomechanics. If you have 3 or less problems in any given movement, you can start there. Okay, let's apply some corrections there. As soon as those deficiencies or whatever it is that you're finding disappear, you can start moving forward again. Correcting, you might be correcting a bunch of different biomechanics. Oftentimes, exercise programs are longer at the beginning when people are starting because there's more stuff to learn. Keep in mind that a lot of this stuff, it's either the muscle tension, it can be neurological, they just don't know how to do it, never done it before. It could be strength. All of those things need to be addressed in here. Once we can move forward to a full squat, we check again. Okay, so in a full squat, there's only 1 or 2 problems left. We correct those. Once we go from there, then we can go to something a little more advanced. And, so now we're applying different forces, more resistance, maybe more complexity. And here's one of the other problems with a lot of the systems out there is they do a general look at what the movement is and how the people are moving under no stress, and everything looks fine. Okay, let's give them an exercise program. Well, now they're under stress. People's bodies break down under stress. So moving this, making it more advanced is actually only increasing the stress on their body before you increase the complexity. Okay? So I'm not an advocate of squatting really high resistance for the general population because there's a lot of wear and tear issues with that. There are many ways to stress the body. So using this as a formula, now you're really starting to be able to work with people in the dead zone and recognize what the problems are and how to correct them, move them forward through the system. Okay. The next stage that I go through is how to progress them over a much longer period of time, what we're actually moving towards. So just give me 2 seconds and we'll continue on. In general, the fitness world, well, not even just the fitness world, the therapy world in the dead zone area, look at teaching people how to do balance skills. So if we continue talking about squatting, teaching them how to squat on 2 feet, with a balanced resistance, something that they can work with. Once they can do that, then we move them forward to one-sided skills, going to like a single leg squat, something like that. There is a massive gap in the middle here that everybody or many people are missing. That is probably the most applicable thing to people's everyday lives and applicable to performance, to really getting people to be more athletic and more dynamic and all of these things. And so this is a step not to be skipped. Uneven skills. So we look at squatting or lifting, two very common, very important exercises. If lifting a load that is uneven. This is highly applicable to everyday life and hugely complicated for the body. But less complicated than this. This is, another step again. So I've taken people who could, deadlift a significant amount of weight. As soon as we made the weight uneven, teaching them to really keep their biomechanics straight and making sure that everything is still really good, increasing the complexity, we've decreased the weight a lot. Like 60, somewhere between 40 and 60%. So if we look at squatting here, we do a balanced squat. We do an uneven squat. And then we do what I call SS, which is a single side squat. And I do that with all of the basic mechanics that I teach. And what I'll show you now are the mechanics that I really make sure that before we go to anything really advanced, that people need to know. Because, let me just back up a little bit. One of the things that people are trying to teach very, very early on, rotation. Rotation is an incredibly complex movement that is very poorly understood by most of the industry. How rotation is actually achieved. Yes, it's important to teach. There are many things you need to teach first. And I'll give you the spreadsheet, like I said, at the end of the video series with all the basic mechanics that I teach. But very quickly going through it now, I teach squatting, lifting, pushing, pulling, pressing, and pulling down. We need to master these skills before we move to things that are more complicated. Maybe even just check them to make sure. You might check all of these because somebody wants to do lots of high performance training and, we find that only a couple of them have problems. The other ones are ready to move forward. That's how you decide what they should be doing at any given time. Okay? And these things should be taught before we teach rotation because there's a lot of fundamental stuff that is going to be learned in here before we go to there. Doesn't mean we have to wait months and years to get there, but we have to just make sure that everything is working properly. Okay? That's the core of the system that I use, and I hope this really helps you. Like I said, this is video 1 in a 4-video series, and I hope you get a ton of information out of this. In the next part of the series, I'm going to go through the systems that I use to deal with all the other things that are going to come up along the way. These systems, like I said before, is what's going to turn you into the person that people are wanting to work with and that your peers look up to for help and inspiration. Please feel free to share this video with anybody you think could get anything out of it. It's a free video series. And leave comments below. I'd love to hear comments from people, what they thought, or any questions on the content of the video itself. We can't expand too much on it, but I will do my best to answer any questions that come across. I really appreciate you taking the time to give me some comments and let me know what you think. And you will see the video 2 will be coming out very soon, next few days or a week. And I hope to see you there again. And I'm very much looking forward to helping you really accelerate your career and getting you to where you want to be. So until then, be active, be healthy, and always be injury-free.